The great ones, they're different. They really are. Not better, just different. Sure, there's a physical power, a mental strength, a complex but resolute constitution too. There's a whole lot more than just the measurables. That's something else, that intangible. It separates us from them. Welcome to the Legends series on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Professional boxing, it's a selfish sport. It has to be, because when that moment arrives, no one is there to help. It's just you and your dreams. No one dreamt more or gave more than this guy. But who is Danny Green?
I don't know, mate. Wow. Andy, you just said that that's a question I've not been asked before, and I haven't. So I don't really, and you know me, I'm rarely stuck for words.
Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I guess I'm just an ordinary cat who I probably just only realise now that I really, really, really love boxing, because I sacrificed a lot and I persevered and I was extremely dedicated and extremely disciplined, which I've never really been with anything else in my life.
Wow.
Boxing was probably the thing that probably saved my life. Probably, I don't know where it would have been if I hadn't age 18 had my first boxing fight. I don't know where it would have been, mate.
We first met in 2001. A few more greys perhaps, but you haven't changed as a bloke. I reckon that's pretty cool.
Cheers, mate. I like to think that I'm just an ordinary cat, like I said, who found something that I love to do, and I look at it as being very blessed to be able to find something that I was given a gift at.
Yep.
And then to be able to channel that and pursue it. But my old man, the one thing that left me was surround myself with good people.
Yes.
And so I surrounded myself with good people, and was lucky enough to pursue something that I really loved and was good at, and that, I guess, changed my life and gave me such an incredible life, mate. I was able to see the world. I was able to represent my country, the Olympic Games, the Commonwealth Games, and as a professional fighter all over the world, and have, a lot of people join me on that journey. I think, I don't know, using my journey, the ride I was on, I call it more a ride. It was like a roller coaster ride at the Royal Show. It was fucking unreal.
Yeah.
There was some ups and there was some downs, there was some highs and lows, but I was fortunate enough to bring a lot of people on that ride with me, because I didn't want to go it alone. I'm in there on my own, but I knew I had a lot of people around me supporting me, and I was just so stoked that I had so much support. And maybe, I don't know, my normal, I guess, everyday nature, that's who I am. I'm not anything special. I don't think I'm anything special. I think that resonated with the people, and they were able to identify that this is a bloke doing what he loves to do. He's pretty good at it. He works his ass off and he wants to win for us. Let's join him on the ride. And I was happy to bring them along, and I wanted people on that ride, mate. So I was so stoked to have that support and that love, mate, because you know more than most people, Andy, you were in the stadium at my biggest fights and you were calling them. You had the front row seat. You had the best seat in the house. Apart from the referee and my opponent, you had the best seat in the house. And you could feel the love in the air when the land down kicks in. I'm not sure whether there was for me, I've never been to a sporting spectacle like it was, and it sounds. I hope don't sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but man, it was pretty full on when I walk in the stadium. There's that much support and love in the air. It was crazy.
It's a common touch that you had, and not every athlete has it, but the general public, I thought, was able to identify with you really easily and really well, and that was what was important to Danny Green and the Australian public. You had that connection throughout your whole career.
Yeah, it was. I think when I turned pro, I used the song to come out to the ring, The Land Down Under, from Men at Work. But I chose that song at the Olympic Games in 2000. I thought, and as amateurs, you don't get the chance to. There's no music, there's no ring girls, there's no Hollywood shit. It's just get out there, fight, get out. Next guys get in, fight, get out. And so they said, "What song do you want to choose? What song do you want to go out to the ring to?" When I was in my first fight, the Olympic Games, I thought, far out, what song could I use?
Yeah.
Dude, I was on the spot. was in the change rooms. So what song do I use? Oh, man. The young guys were using heavy metal, rap, hardcore music, all good music, but didn't really resonate with the crowd. It was Darling Harbour.
Yep.
It was, late at night. I was the only Australian fighting in the night. They drained the bar dry, as Aussies do. Well, I chose the Land Down Under from Men at Work, and it worked a treat. When the song kicked in, the roof nearly lifted off the stadium, and that's the song I'm using for my whole career. And I think the Aussies, they love that. For me, it was really special to leave a mark and leave a memory with people that when that song kicks in, the people who went to our fights, a lot of them, go, wow, I was at that fight that night, and that song reminds me of it. So it's very cool.
It was something very special, and I can say, in all honesty, in 30 years of broadcasting, the hairs have never stood up on the back of the neck quite like being in Challenge Stadium at Perth in front of your family and your friends and your fans, and Men at Work hits. It was off the fucking charts.
There's only 5,500 people in there, mate, and it just that was man. It was very, very undescribable. You had to be there.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's sad for me that I can't show people and give the people the feeling. They can see it, they can watch it, but they can't feel the atmosphere. They can't feel that genuine. I don't know, man. That euphoria that when the song kicked in, everyone just went bananas. It was like, wow, it was so cool.
Your mental strength, your mental toughness, is that inherited? Is it natural, or is it something that you were mindful of and you had to work very hard on?
It's another tough question, Andy. I'd probably say that you're born with it.
Yep.
You read a lot and you hear a lot of people's stories, and I think resilience and mental strength is obviously developed.
Yes.
But for myself, I think I was born very, very, very determined and very stubborn. And I didn't think, I've got to do this. I just did it. I didn't think I've got to mentally switch on here and do this. I just did it. But in other areas, I guess I switched off from other areas, and to channel into that fighter, you got to be pretty selfish, man, Andy.
Yep.
When you're a fighter, you got to be a selfish person as far as you need to switch everything off around you. And hey, mate, how you going? But really, you just got tunnel vision, and you've got to be very, very determined. To be a top line fighter, you have to have a lot of determination, skill, obviously, and all the things, athletic attributes that go with that. But you have to have, I think, your mental focus and your mental durability is the number one factor to success. That was for me anyway. Like when I look back and think that I literally had a broken nose 5 weeks out from world title fights and had black eyes for 4 weeks before it. And the only reason my black eyes went away because I stopped sparring the week out, and then take a broken nose into a fight.
Yep.
Broke my hand in the middle of a fight, broke my hand during a fight, broke my hand and fought my hand. I fought the whole professional career with that right hand. I did that in the Olympic Games. It was chronically painful. Yeah. Broken ribs, I fractured a jaw and my nose the night before a fight as an amateur, and fought the next night with it because I won the fight and then had to go on the next night.
Wow.
So, and I've got so many of those fractured eye sockets and covering up, putting steak over my eye, going to sleep with steak on my eye, wrapping a steak on me because an old wives' tale, put a steak over your eye to take the swelling and the blood out, just so I could get the okay from the doctor the next day as an amateur to fight in an international tournament. Just so many stories where lanced my own boils out of my armpit, cut a boil out of my own thigh, because if they'd stitched it up, then there would be a massive hole in it. When they did it at that ass, you could literally see the sheath of muscle and sinew inside all the flesh, and that was rad. So all these things, all these stories, there's so, and that comes down to, and I'm not special. There's lots of athletes and lots of humans that do. That's nothing compared to what some people do, but for me, I was able to just drill down on being. I guess it was pretty fucking stupid. Sorry, Andy. I was quickly say I had a talk with cricket, Tasmanian cricket team the other day, the day before yesterday, and they asked about mental strength. I said, if you really want to be the best and you want to continue to be the best, and you got an injury that your doctor or physio might go, that's going to affect you in later life, and you may not be able to bowl when you're 40 years old or 50 years old. You might be able to do this. If you really want to do it, you'll go, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I don't care what happens later in life. If you really want to do it, you'll just do it and face the consequences down the track. Are
you doing mentoring now because of that mental toughness, that mental intensity that that is almost second nature to you? And do you enjoy the mentoring?
Yeah, I train a few people, but I haven't got into full-time training. I look forward to doing that when I've got a bit more time and the resources. When I say resources, the fighters to do it.
Yep.
You know, I get a hungry young fighter and hopefully train him and help him develop what he's got, and then pass on what I've learned.
Yeah.
But I just want to see someone else succeed and achieve their dreams and do what I was able to do. And if I can play a part in that, that excites me. That really excites me. And just sit in the background and go, fuck yeah, that's wicked. Yeah. Look at that bloke doing what he loved doing. That excites me a lot. And hopefully my marbles hang around long enough so I can do that.
You're listening to Andy Raymond Unfiltered, the Legends series. We have corporate and private sponsorship packages available. You set the terms. For further information on how you can become part of the team, go to the website andyraymondunfiltered.com.au and hit the sponsorship tab. You were the most intense professional athlete I've crossed paths with. Was it a switch you could flick, or was it a gradual build-up into that competitive state that you needed to be in? Because I guess the process for different individuals can and does vary.
When you say, it's funny you say that, Andy. I get a lot of people go, you know, you're intense or you are intense, and I think I'm mellow. You know, I think I'm like, fuck, I'm cruisy. I'm a mellow dude. I'm cruisy. When you say intense, what do you mean by intense? In what way?
You are very cruisy. You are very relaxed. There was a point in a preparation where you almost, in my opinion, glazed over and were so single-minded and so focused that nothing else was important and nothing else was registering to you.
I guess press conferences and weigh-ins, I could see why people go, man, if a person only ever met me at a press conference or a weigh-in before a fight, the day before a fight, they go, man, that guy's too much for me.
Yeah.
He's off his head. You know, I get that, because that was the hardest part, because you've been in training camp, you've been away from your family, you put your body through torture, you've really wrung the towel out as far as much out of your body as you can get. And then you're going into battle the next night, and there's so much pressure. And with me being my company, Green Machine Boxing, promoting it, there was so much pressure because I was financially, liable for any boxers. So the buck stopped with me, literally. Yeah. And that pressure, but more so just the pressure. And then when you go into a press or a weigh-in, you get the scales, and everyone wants to get out. Oh, g'day, Greeny. How you going, mate? How you going, buddy? A long time no see. You might not have seen a guy for 10 years. G'day, mate. Oh, do you mind let's have a chat, mate? Or do you want to get a cup of coffee? And you don't want to be rude, but you're popping. You're fucking jumping out of your skin. And there's got so much energy, plus there's so much pressure, and you're trying to contain it, and you just want to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And so I hope to, if anyone listens to that, then they did see me at a presser or a weigh-in and they go, that guy's rude as fuck, I'm sorry, but you probably don't, you unless you did it, you'll never understand it. It was hard. So I understand more people would see I'm intense. And then when the fight time, when it comes to fighting, once I got in that ring, I like to have a smile on my face. I remember once, I think I was fighting Flores, BJ Flores.
Yeah.
And then there was a bit of ice on the ground, and I kicked the ice out. It was about round 8, and I kicked the ice out, and then it went ringside because I kicked it towards my nephew, who was helping the hard girls in and out. I kicked it towards him, and it landed in his lap, and I was going for him. And then the round 8's about to start. We're off our feet, and the bell's gone. I've gone, boom, and looked at him and laughed, and then given it the goal. It was like, kick the goal.
Nice.
And you picked it up. You know? You picked it up. Greeny's got it. You always picked up the fucking silly shit that I did. But, in between that intenseness, I always tried to have a bit of a wink or see my mate. I'd do something just because I wanted to enjoy what I was doing as well.
16 straight wins as a professional, your first 16 all inside the distance by KO or TKO. What do you consider your first real challenge as a boxer?
First one.
First one was...
Yeah, I took care of him, fairly comfortably. But it was just, I'd come out of the Olympic Games and I'd moved to Sydney. I didn't know anyone. I was out at Bankstown Sports Centre and didn't really know people. And there's there wasn't so much pressure on me from anyone else because, no one really knew what I was going to do. They didn't know the potential that I possibly had. But I put a lot of pressure on myself, and there was so much pressure on me personally. It was like, it was pretty nerve-wracking. people don't. I've not really said this much, but I turned pro. Obviously, I wanted to win a world title, but I turned pro. My motivation to turning professional was to try and get 30 or 40K together, to win an Australian title and get 30 to 40K together over my career, save that up, and then put a deposit down the house and go back and work as a carpenter and buy my trade and pay my house off. That was my motivation for turning pro. Really, the world titles was all a fucking pipe dream.
Yeah.
It was all we all want to do it as fighters, but was it realistic? I didn't know. So, I really wanted to get off to a good start. And then probably the next big pressure fight was against Paul Smallman, the doctor.
Yeah. That was a step up in class, wasn't it?
He'd lost a few fights, but he'd been in there with a lot of really tough guys. Paul Smallman, he was a hard man.
Yep.
He taught me so much. I'll never forget that fight. I put him away in the 8th round, and we punched on after round 6, and he's a tough, hard man, and he loves it. And I got a lot of respect for the bloke. And I learned so much from him in that fight. But for me to beat him, Roy Jones was ringside. Yeah. He was sitting ringside in that fight. And, I really had to perform. And I really wanted to win. And I won in a really, really good fight. He gave it to me. I gave it to him. He nearly dropped me. I dropped him, then put him away in round 8. But it was a good scrap.
Yep.
But there was a lot of pressure to be victorious because I was a main event. Jeff had put the pressure on me, but give me the main event shot, which was great. But that was probably the biggest step up for me at that stage. And then probably the next one would have been Delisle out of Penrith under the tent. Everyone thought he was going to knock me out, and I was confident I was going to take out the Nader, and we put on a good show while it lasted.
You certainly did. And very shortly after that was Marcus Mayer in Germany, a really underrated boxer, and at the time the WBC World Super-Middleweight champion. You'd made it. You'd lived a dream. You were fighting for a world title, but then that dream was shattered in an instant and controversially. I'll let you take up the story.
Oh, it's it was very, very, very disheartening and heartbreaking. Oh. And I wasn't given a chance. He was a 2-time champ at that stage. He'd won his title back. He knocked out Richie Woodall to get the title originally from England, and then I think that was the thing. And then he lost it to someone, and then he fought Eric Luca and won it back off Eric Luca.
Yep.
In the fight before us, in controversial fashion, apparently. We watched the fight. It could have gone either way. It was a very close fight. And then they picked me out of the top 10. They thought you can choose anyone in the top 10 because it was a voluntary defense. It wasn't a mandatory, meaning I wasn't a number 1. I was top 10.
Yep. And
they could choose anyone in that top 10 fight, in the top 10 rankings. And they looked at the rankings and thought, we'll choose that bloke there. He's from Australia. Angelo had a good relationship with their then matchmaker back in the day who's passed away. I can't remember his name now, but, Angelo Hyder, he knows everyone in boxing.
He does.
And he's a professor at that. And they got the fight and they chose me, 16 fights, 16 KOs, never gone past 8 rounds. We'll take him in a deep water. Should be an easy fight. And so they got a big shock when round 1, I took him off his feet. He actually lifted off his feet. But before that, it was probably about 5 days out, and I was doing pads with Fennick, and obviously H was there. And we were doing pads, and I was hitting the pads so sharp. And I remember H turned to Fennick in between one of the rounds and said, "Hey, Jeff, he can really outbox this guy," because we were relying on my strength, power, and ruggedness to do the job in against a really experienced guy. Yep. And then H said to Fennick, I'll never forget, he said, "Mate, Granny, you can outbox this bloke. Your jab and your boxing skills really stepped up this preparation. Don't underestimate your boxing ability. You're gonna box this guy's fucking ears off." And that gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And so I took that in, and then, man, I just marched that guy down and just gave it to him and just never took a back step. And I think my mindset in a lot of my fights was, I've got nothing to lose. I'm here in a big fight. If I get knocked out, so be it. That's the way she goes. But I want to go out swinging.
Yep.
And so I felt really, really composed. The fight itself, I couldn't have gone better. I just gave it to the guy, dropped him round 1, dropped him round 2, opened him up in round 2. Should have been called off in round 3. Anywhere else in the world, it would have been stopped after round 3, definitely, maybe even round 2.
Yep.
Gave it to him round 4. Then round 5, we clashed heads, and he had a bad cut, a massive cut already by my punch, and I kept working it. And then he was southpaw. I've gone to throw a left hook, and unfortunately our heads clashed, but my head never ever went near his eye, anywhere near his eye. but because it looked like it was pretty intense, and we were both. The referee was covered in his blood.
Yep.
It was a pretty gory scene, and I've hit him with a left hook, and my intentions were proven because I hit him with the left hook, and then I've thrown the uppercut after, and it whistled past his face. If the uppercut hit him, mate, his head would have landed in the crowd. Yep. And so my intentions were clear that it was a punch, but we clashed heads. Was I reckless? Was I a bit careless? Possibly, yeah. I don't think so, really. Not really in the scheme of things. Any other fight, it happens every time. So they took 11 minutes. I was ahead on all scorecards by a mile. And then the doctor from the referee said, Bill Clancy, who was a fucking cretin, he got stood over by the referee, by the crowd, by the guys in the trench coats, and they're sitting next door. You sit in the front row, who were with Sauerland, the promoter. And 11 minutes after, the referee told everyone on TV, we're going to the scorecards. The foul was not flagrant enough for me to disqualify the offending fighter. He then overturned it because the doctor said, no, we've got a rule here, and that's it. And so I was disqualified, and I lost the world title. And it was, very, very, very disheartening, mate. I was just shattered. But then I put it into perspective real fucking quick. I got home to Australia. My daughter was there to meet me at the airport. Chloe was there. We had food on the table. We had no leaks in the roof, mate. Everything was good. I lived in Australia. I was like, you know what? And I actually spoke to myself. I said, harden the fuck up and don't whinge, and just get on with it. You could be living in, you could be in Syria or somewhere where so many people are just, their lives are shattered through conflict, through no fault of their own, mate. It makes me sad to think of that. So I'm like, mate, you got nothing to complain about. Harden the fuck up and move on. And that was how I dealt with it. It was really easy to deal with.
Any elite athlete will tell you it takes more than just being physically fit to be at your best. And our friends at Galaxy Finance can have you at the top of your financial game. From home loans to investments and self-managed super funds, they provide complete solutions. Call Galaxy Finance on 1300 91 7740 and mention you heard it on Raymond Unfiltered to get an obligation-free chat to see how Galaxy Finance can assist you. It's the one thing I hate about boxing. I can't get over it, and it continues on until even last weekend. The corruption, the bribery, the bullshit, the favouring, and it is doing the sport as a whole no favours whatsoever.
Yeah, last weekend's decision against Andrew Maloney was disgraceful.
Yep.
It was despicable. It was 30 minutes. They deliberated for 30 minutes over a no-brainer. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission, their arrogance was so bad. They made a mistake by calling it. They allowed the referee to call it. They allowed the referee to stick by it. And then after that, they're like, no, we can't change our mind. We're going to stick by this because we'll have egg on our face.
Yep.
And they cost a world title. And now they're talking about a rematch. There should be no rematch. Andrew Maloney is a two-time champion.
Yes.
He won his world title back after losing it in an incredible effort. And he should be, that guy, Joshua Franco, should no longer be in Andrew Maloney's life unless he comes back and they want to unify down the track. He's done and dusted, and that chapter's done. And now he has to possibly do it again. It's so unfair. It's wrong. I mean, when you get Helen Mirren, who was an elderly English actress, tweeting how bad the decision was, mate, you know it's fucking dirty.
Mate, 6 months after your trip to Germany, and I admit this is still one of the most alarming scenes I've witnessed, a combination of adrenaline, dehydration and heat stress, caused you to basically go into a state of delirium after a fight. 48 degrees in the venue, a 12-round fight that you won, but you actually thought you'd lost. You were that out of whack. We look back and giggle now, but wow, it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah, man, I was close to being in serious trouble, brain-wise. That was because I won the title after Bayer. I went and won the title against Luca over in Montreal. Yep. And then that was my next fight after that. And Sean Sullivan, he'd fought Mundine. Fennick thought it'd be a good idea to fight Sean Sullivan because he'd gone 10 rounds with Mundine. So we're trying to chase down the Mundine fight. Jeff was just hell-bent on getting that fight with Mundine. And it made sense for me as well. Financially, it was a good fight. And everyone in Australia wanted to see it. It started bubbling over then. So they got Sean Sullivan out, and he's a very hard man. But a week before the fight, about 8 days before the fight, I was still in Sydney training. I woke up one morning. No, it was about 11, 12 o'clock at night, I woke up out of bed. I was like, my throat was swelling, my tongue was getting swollen. My breathing started getting a bit weird. Like, fuck. I only lived down the road from the hospital. So I did what most blokes do, jumped in the shower and had a warm shower. I thought that'll fucking fix it.
Yeah, yeah.
And didn't work, so I said to Nina, so I'm going to have to take myself to hospital because I'm feeling really, really weird here. So I drove myself to hospital, just didn't bother fucking doing anything, just grabbed the keys, drove down the road. They looked at me and went, oh, shit, come, we're going to get you an emergency because my face started going, my throat, everything started swelling up.
Wow.
Look, I've been stung by a swarm of wasps. And then what happened is that they knocked me out, and then 7 o'clock the next morning, I got out of hospital, and they said that I had an anaphylactic reaction to either a bug, a bite, food, something. What it was, they didn't know, and they said you're gonna have to do all these tests to find out what it was. They gave me a shitload of Phenergan and bowled me over and let me recover. And then that same morning, I got out of hospital at 7 o'clock in the morning. About 10:30, I'm jogging past the hospital doing my morning jog.
Yeah,
that's what we do, man.
Yeah.
And so then the next day I flew to Perth and had the fight. So I was physically, I felt okay, but there was obviously there was problems going on, and I hadn't recovered. Whatever it was, I hadn't recovered from it probably. But it was 43 when we fought at it was March 23, 2004. I remember the date. It was 43 degrees outside at 4:30 p.m. So 4:30 p.m. in Perth was 43 degrees, unseasonably hot day.
Yeah.
And inside the stadium, remember the air conditioning broke down for 2 hours before the fight. There was no aircon.
Yeah.
So when I got in the ring, 48 degrees is a very, very fair assumption to say in the ring under those incredibly hot lights, because it's 43 degrees outside in the fucking in the shade.
Yep.
Let alone inside a sweating hot stadium. So we got in there and I went to it, and Jeff just wanted me to bowl him over, knock him out, make a statement.
Yep.
Obviously, my power and my strength wasn't as good as it could have been because of what I'd been going through. Credit to Sean Sullivan. He ate a lot of leather and he gave me some leather back. But I won the fight comfy, but he made me work for it.
Yes.
Tough motherfucker, mate.
Yeah.
Great guy, Sean Sullivan. Very hard man. I don't remember much of the fight. So I was basically just cooking from the inside. I was marinating. The only thing missing was a bit of alcohol. And so I was marinating, mate, and then I didn't realise what was going on. And then as soon as the bell went to end the fight, I've just fucking staggered, and that was it. So mentally, I kept going.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, I heard the bell, and I nearly fell over, and I realised the fight's over, my job's done here. Don't know what's going on. Then I started vomiting in the corner and just went fucking loopy.
Yeah.
Eyes rolling back of my head, and I was the colour of a white sheet. And because I thought what happened, Andy, is I heard all this noise, kind of like and then I kind of came to.
Yeah.
Must have been 3 or 4 minutes later. I came to, and the crowd was screaming and cheering. And I thought, wow, I've just been knocked out because I don't remember anything, and I've come to. I thought I've been knocked out unconscious, and I'm awake now, and the crowd is screaming at me. I'm going, fuck, how good are these people? I've just been knocked out, and they're still screaming for me. I love you guys. I thought I lost the fight. I thought I'd been knocked out. I had no idea. So that's what the interview was about. People thought I was being silly or taking the piss. No. I thought I'd been knocked out. I had no idea what was going on, and I was just gaga, mate. I said, yeah, there'll be a rematch. Sean, you're a warrior, but I'm coming back for you, mate. I'm coming back and I'll do it, and next time I'll win, and rah, because I was fucked up.
Yeah.
And the only thing that got me to hospital, and then I now know through speaking and doing my own, knowing more about dehydration, I got really aggressive in the change rooms. No one could get me to hospital. I got really aggressive. I kind of, like everyone came near me. I was like, don't come near me. And I actually said to my dad, who, me and my father's relationship, they came near me, and I remember getting wild and going, Dad, I want to knock you fucking out. Don't you come near me. Yeah, it was pretty scary. I felt, and talk about it now, Dad never took offense because he knew I was really sick.
Yeah.
And I was really under the weather. No one could get me to hospital. Then I collapsed. I remember I collapsed again, or when I collapsed, I just had to lie down because I couldn't move. And Nina said she thought smart. This is like 10 minutes of trying to get me to go to hospital. And then she said, Chloe's waiting at the hospital for you. Let's go. I went, okay, bang. Chloe's waiting for me. Let's go. Got up, went to hospital, and that's it. So then she thought smart. She's always a smart thinker, Nina. She's not that fucking smart being with me. But anyway, so that was it. That was that story there. But then I recovered. I didn't fight for about another 4 or 5 months after that. And, I was very, very lucky not to have caused right then and there some serious damage. The doctor said you were extremely close to being in a very, very serious state. Another round, I think I would have been fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, fair assessment.
The early part of your career, you were with Jeff Fennick. You were trainer and athlete, mentor, protege. You were also mates. How hard was it splitting with Jeff Fennick after so long together and so many memories together?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy decision to make emotionally, but it was a very simple decision to make for my career.
Yep.
So, man, that's where I was torn between making a decision, but I had to make the decision. And you know, Jeff, mate, people who know Jeff know that Jeff can be a very complicated character. Mm. And I left that relationship with my head held very, very high. So that's all I'll say about it, mate. I had some fantastic memories, and we won the Super-Middleweight world title together. And my career, you know, was given an injection, you know, through the media, through Jeff's contacts. And you know, when you turn pro Jeff and you start being successful and the media jump on board as well, you know, Jeff's very savvy and good at attracting media attention, etc. But there was just so much going on outside. And I was, I mean, there's so many things I could go into. I won't go into it, mate, but I left that relationship and I have some beautiful memories, some incredible memories. You know, growing up watching him, you know, fighting and just idolising the bloke, and then to be fighting under him and then winning a world title with him and, you know, travelling the world around. It's like far out. It's like a dream come true. But in the end, it just became too difficult. And my career and my health was kind of going down that way because my fighting was probably not, I wasn't fighting the way I should have been fighting, you know, as a super-middleweight, light heavyweight. And we split. And it was just unfortunate, I guess. You know, Jeff didn't really have many positive things to say and hasn't really had many positive things to say, you know, about me since that day, and which is really unfortunate on his behalf. Because I think he lets himself down when he says those things, because people who know what happened, a lot of people know what happened and how it went down. And there's many things they don't know as well that I've never, you know, that I would never talk about. And I left that relationship with my head held extremely high.
Do you think you'll sit down one day with Jeff in years to come and have a chat? Would that be nice? Would that be a full circle type thing?
Jeff rang me when my father passed away because he knew how close we were, and you know, he rang me and passed his condolences on. So, you know, that was you know, I respect that and respected that, and I rang Jeff and just to check on him when he was very sick and just said, mate, you okay? And just had a chat to him. And there'll always be you know, that respect there that I'm going to have for what we did together and what I was able to do as a professional fighter, and the you know, the introductions and the career that I had when I was with Jeff. I'll always love that, mate. There's some really, really unfortunate and forgettable times in there as well, but I just wish that Jeff would you know, would what's the word? I don't know. Maybe over time his bitterness towards life in general, in some aspects, hopefully that changes and softens a bit. But yeah, you know, but like I said, mate, I just don't rip the guy. I don't say anything. I just keep my mouth shut because that's how I am, mate. And I'm happy with that. I'm happy being that person that just moves on and moves forward and kind of rises above that kind of stuff, mate.
This is Andy Raymond Unfiltered, and it's Prize Week. The first 10 people to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot and email us, win an Unfiltered Truckers hat. Yep, 10 hats to be given away this week. It's that easy. Simply leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it, and then email it to mailbox@andyraymondunfiltered.com.au. 10 hats to be given away. What are you waiting for? This has been episode 1 of 3 of the Danny Green story. We hope you're enjoying it. Coming up, the night he shocked the world and his concerns, his very real concerns. That's next on Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Come back soon, legends. Welcome back to Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Danny Green, Between the Ropes. This is part 2. In part 1, we spoke the early years, his world title controversy, and the split with trainer Jeff Fennick. The story continues. After you split with Jeff, you chose to return and base yourself predominantly back home in WA. You were trained by Ismail Salas, but one man by your side for the entire journey has been Angelo Hyder, inside the ring and outside of the ring.
Yeah, I met him when I first turned pro. He was down the gym. He was Jeff's matchmaker and was really he was the brains of the outfit. He was the guy who was doing everything.
Yep.
He did everything. If people want to dispute that, then they're kidding themselves as far as putting those fight nights on and stuff and the Fennec fight nights. Angelo was pivotal in putting that and making that happen, matching the fights, a whole load of things. And Jeff used his expertise and his experience and his contacts and his network to then make it. So it was a great partnership while it worked, while we were together. But Angelo, Jeff, he said, I met him one day in the gym. He said, take a lift, give this guy a lift home with H to me, because I was living in Asheville from Bankstown, the gym we were training at. Gave me a lift, and that was it, mate. We kind of clicked from the get go. And on the way home, we went past an old panel beaters to pick up a new quarter panel, front left hand quarter panel for his old Falcon that he was driving. It's just, what H is like, mate. And then on the way home, I think we drove past a business that had some old furniture at the front. He goes, "Oh mate, I could use that." He pulled over, and I think we threw a chair in the back of the fucking back of the car. He's just the best up bloke, and I believe, and not because he was my matchmaker for so long, and then was my the coach and assistant coach, and then my coach after 2009 and to my end of my career. He was the most pivotal guy in my boxing career. Pat De Valera's was the guy who gave me the ability to come off. So I have so much love for Pat. And then Angelo, when I turned pro, Angelo was the guy that was the most pivotal guy in my career, without doubt. From matching fights to introducing me to contacts and networks to assisting me, but also the main thing is the boxing knowledge that he was able to bring to my fighting.
Yep.
His knowledge of the game and his knowledge of individual fighters and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what the strengths and weaknesses of opponents are. I don't believe there's a better guy that I've ever worked with. He really, really does know boxing inside out.
What people don't see of you is you have a fantastic and very warped sense of humour. And you and Angelo are an extremely naughty double act together. You're as bad and incorrigible as each other, but there is always a laugh. I'd love for you to tell the story. I think it was Las Vegas, and the Tourette's syndrome routine that the pair of you came up with in the middle of a casino.
So we were, and this, I hope this isn't politically incorrect. We were sitting there. Yeah, H. I don't think I've had more fun with anyone than that bloke. He is fucking MAD capital letter. He's so sharp, so quick. I just wish I was mates with the bloke when I was 18.
Yeah.
If I knew him when I was 18. But then saying that, I would guarantee we'd still be serving a fucking very long stretch. But we'd still be having a good time. And we'd have the money hidden away somewhere and still be living large. I was in LA training for a fight and had to go to Vegas. Quickly met Dennis Hobson, who was Clinton Woods, the IBF light heavyweight world champion's then manager.
Yep.
We thought we were trying to get a shot at that title, and I was ranked in the top 10, and we were trying to angle to get that fight going on. And then Ricky Hatton was with him in Vegas watching a fight. I can't remember the fight. Anyway, come to Vegas, boys. And this was Friday night, and I'm sitting at the foyer at the Hyatt on Sunset. Come to Vegas, and we'll talk. Can you make it to Vegas tomorrow night? We're here for the fight. And we're like, fuck, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was over there training for a fight. Let's go. And we were sitting, and at the reception there was a young guy, and he heard us talking. He goes, "Hey guys, you're trying to get to Vegas, are you?" Kind of a young Yankee guy. And I said, "Yeah, man, we're trying to get to Vegas. We're trying to hire a car. We don't know how to do it. Trying to hire a car in America when you're an Australian is impossible. We've got to fill out everything known to man." It's like, "Oh, I can't do this." Both of us trying to work out that. We're like, fuck. And this guy, he goes, "Oh, man." I said, "Hey, you want to come to Vegas with us?" Because he goes, fuck, I got to. He mentioned something about a car. I said, "Well, how about you drive us to Vegas? You come to Vegas, I'll put you up for the night. We'll pay for petrol and put you up at the hotel, and we'll go for Vegas for a couple of nights, have a bit of fun." He goes, I said, "Come on, mate, do it. You only live once." He goes, "Oh, okay, right on." He just met us. We didn't even know his fucking name. Rightio. So he agreed to meet us in the foyer at 7 o'clock the next morning. Bang, we got in the car the next morning and got out there. He was driving this little, I don't know what it was. It was a square. The car was like a rectangle, like a box. He went literally one block, I said, Kyle, his name's Kyle. I said, Kyle, man, I can't do this. You got to get out. Let me drive. No. I go, Kyle, please, mate, just let me fucking drive. You can't drive this all the way to Vegas, because he was like, just terrible. So I jumped out and I floored that thing all the way to Vegas. We got there in record time. The bolts were starting to unscrew from the car. We were going that fast. We got there. Anyway, saw Dennis Hobson, had a meeting with him and Ricky Hatton, secretary Ricky Hatton, and off we went. And then we went out we were sitting in the bar that night, and I wasn't on the piss because I was training. And something come up. This kid was telling us about something, a friend of his who has Tourette syndrome, and which is no laughing matter. But when he kind of gives an example of what his friend does. I'm like, are you serious? And he goes, yeah, man, that's what he does. He's a poor bloke. And then a lady came over and he goes, I'll show you what he does when he comes to a lady. And the lady came over and went to, just walked past and Kyle said something to this lady. He goes, hey, how you going? And he looked over and he introduced us to this lady. And then next minute he goes, shit, whore! And then the lady's gone, oh, and I was just going, oh, sorry, my friend, he's got Tourette syndrome. I was so embarrassed. It's like, oh, fucking hell, are you serious, mate? What are you doing? He goes, fuck you, bitch, whore. And then shook his head and he goes, I'm so sorry, love. Oh, can't. And she's, oh, that's okay. Oh, it's okay, love. I was like, oh man, far out. You are fucking crazy. Oh, dear. That was one of the things. But we've got so many stories, mate. I'd love to, if I could write a book, if H and I could write a book, which we never could. But if I could write a book, we always talk about writing a book about someone else.
Yes.
Write a book about someone else. Oh, wow. He is one very funny man. We got we're at the MGM and got at the buffet once. I think it was the MGM buffet, and as I was going to check in to the buffet to have breakfast, there was three of us, H and someone else. Might have been Stevie Wills. I think it was Stevie Wills, a serial killer.
Yeah.
I called him the serial killer, and then you ran with it and said, Stevie, the serial killer Wills. You gave him the name, I gave him the name, and you ran with it. Live on TV for about a year, he was the serial killer. Imagine if that happened now, Andy.
We'd all be in trouble, wouldn't we? We'd all be in strife.
Oh, fucking hell. So I got there. We're going to check in, and there was a two-way, a walkie-talkie on the desk as you go up to the reception and walk in. She turned her head to walk away to get someone, and I just quickly grabbed the walkie-talkie and walked in behind her, and she didn't know. And this was the walkie-talkie because I all had headsets in, and it's packed, and there's staff everywhere. And so I realised this walkie-talkie is what they're talking, because I saw her grab it and go, we got three more coming on the table, and she put it down the table. I grabbed it and walked in. We sat down at the booth, and it's just packed. There's people everywhere. So then I grabbed the walkie-talkie, and I'm just going, and put it down. And you can see everyone going, all the workers going, what's going on? And we put it down. And then about 3 minutes later, I grabbed the phone and gone, and put it down. And then you could see them all looking for it and going, what's going on? And looking around. And then I grabbed it and, I said some silly things into the walkie-talkie. And we were crying. We were laughing so loud, and they had no idea. And the whole breakfast, and then put it on the seat and just making it still and saying some silly shit. And then when we left, I put it back on the table, and no one ever knew. But
you got away with it.
Just so many. Like I'm just top of my head. Just so many funny things. He literally is the funniest guy I know.
Now, as much as probably both you and Anthony Mundine don't want it and are sick of it, your careers actually intertwined, and neither one's story is complete without talking about the other. The lead up to the first fight. How much more of a challenge was this because it had gone from professional to personal, and the build-up had been so long and so significant?
Yeah, Choc made it personal, and Choc chose to include race and religion to make a buck, and I disagreed with that, and I took offence to it. And he called me the corporate white man's figure. I was a carpenter by trade, left school and did my apprenticeship as a carpenter. He walked straight out of school into a monster rugby league contract. So didn't know what a 9 to 5 was. So he talked a lot of shit and said a lot of stupid things, and then attempted to make it personal. But for me, I was never really invested enough in Choc to get personal with it. Yep. It's like, mate, you don't really bother that much. I don't know you, and I was, I don't care what you are. And he was there, and the media really ran with it, and the media really I think the media were responsible, and they loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. I'm the fucking white guy. He's the Aboriginal Muslim. So, you know, there was that. It was a match made in heaven for two fighters, for the media to wring it dry and get a lot out of it. And the media helped make myself and Choc a lot of money by doing that. But Choc was also very clever in the way he positioned himself in the media. He learned early on that being polarising and controversial was going to pay the bills. I chose not to go down that path. I had to look, and Choc's very close. He was old man as well. Anthony Mundine is an absolute gentleman, and so I had to. I didn't play the part. I just simply replied when I was asked the questions, and I'm not going to be a wood duck. So I didn't. A lot of times I wasn't really leading off and throwing the first punch. It was really just a reply, and then we went back and forth, and that's how it come about. The first time I ever saw him in the flesh was when we hopped in the ring in Sydney that night in 2000. I never seen the guy in the flesh. So, but the things he was saying, you obviously you're a fighter, you get worked up, and it just comes down to competitiveness.
Yeah.
I just wanted to beat the guy. I just know I'm a better fighter, and unfortunately, I didn't get to prove it. In the first fight, and then the second fight, I won the fight, but I wasn't able to knock him out, which I know I should have done, and I know I would have done if I wasn't coward's punched in that first minute.
Griffin Air Conditioning offers the highest quality of air conditioning sales and service across the Sydney metropolitan area, providing installation and maintenance to commercial, domestic and industrial customers. Working with this team, you'll be guaranteed the latest services, technology and developments in the industry. Visit griffinair.com.au and tell them we sent you for a cool deal. Looking back on the 2006 fight, with the benefit of hindsight as we sit here in 2020, do you have any regrets from that night?
Yes. Yeah, I should have postponed the fight for 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah, I should have postponed the fight for 6 months. Had a very, 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 very tough personal loss in our family.
Yes.
So that was very, very tough and a brutal loss. So and I'm very close family. So that tore me apart, tore our whole family apart, and it was very, very tough to deal with. And so I thought that immersing myself in the gym and punishing myself physically somehow was going to make it better.
You thought that was the answer?
Because you don't know. You don't really know what's going on. You don't know how to deal with it. And so I'd kind of lost focus, and I was. That would be a regret. I wish I had my time back, and I would have postponed the fight for at least 6 months, maybe a year, even. Just to get around my family and be around that stuff more. But it is what it is, mate. And the 10 kilograms, people go, "Oh, you're making excuses." No, I'm not. I'm not making excuses. There was a reason why my body was not able to perform how it should have, because I was way, way malnourished. Less than 3% body fat. There's not many athletes who could walk around the block, let alone fight 12 hard rounds and push him. So, and dealing with what I was emotionally. So I look back and go, I really don't know how I actually got in the ring that night. It was almost like I was up on the stadium, up on the fucking lighting tower, watching what was going down below. And if Choc was the fighter that he says he was, he should have knocked me out in the first round. I was a shot fucking duck, mentally, emotionally, and physically. But he won the fight. Hats off to the bloke. But I don't. He's kind of that's a big victory for him, and fantastic, and good luck to him, and hats off to the guy who won the fight. But yeah, I wish I'd had the fight a year later.
After all these years, do you and Anthony know each other? Have you ever had the chance to sit down and chat away from the cameras without the bullshit?
Never. I don't know who he is, mate. I don't know him, and I'm sure one day we'll break bread. Sure, one day we'll break bread as long as he drops the attitude.
Yeah.
We did the Jungle Show together, and he proclaims that I'm aloof and arrogant and all these kind of things, but he doesn't know me, and he doesn't know who I am. He really doesn't know who I am, and I really don't know who he is. But I hear a lot of good things about him. I know people who know him and it says a lot of good things about him. I know for a fact that Choc ain't a bad guy. Choc ain't a horrible bloke at all. He's not a bad human being. I don't think there's many bad, but I don't think there's many bad bones in his body. I've got a lot of respect for the man. He's an immense, incredible athlete. First grade premiership player. in a very hard sport, and he starred in that sport, and then crossed over to another very hard sport in boxing, and you know, he excelled, and he was a world champion. And so, as an athlete, I have immense amount of respect for the guy. I actually like watching him fight. I really like his style.
Okay.
It's a different style to me. He's got a really nice style. He's very, very fluent.
Yep.
He's punching. He picks his shots well. He's strong too. People think he's, because he's a lighter guy. And he's not muscle bound.
Yeah.
He's wiry. He's a very strong guy. As soon as I got in the first clinch in 2006, I felt it. I went, yeah, this guy's strong. But you don't play first grade at his level, and you're not strong, mate. So I knew he was going to be strong, but I wasn't surprised by his strength. But I was like, yeah, cool. This fucking guy's strong. People don't really know that. Yeah. He's a strong man. He's physically a strong dude. You can't do what he did without having that immense strength. But personally, I really like watching. So style-wise, he's a good fighter, man. He's a world champion, fucking good fighter. I really like watching his style. And as a bloke, I don't really know him. In the jungle, we kind of had a few back and forth. And I said, mate, let's go outside. Let's sort it out now. No problem. I'll get in the room now. I'll jump in the phone booth now and get on. Yeah. No problem. I'm sure he would too. He's not afraid. But then towards the end, we didn't say a lot. We hardly got to speak to each other. And I know that if we spend time with each other, I know that we'd get on. Because I know he's got he's a pretty funny guy. A couple of times he'd farted in there and around the girls, like he dropped his guts, which I find fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But everyone was like, oh, you can't do that. Bubba was like, what do you mean you can't do that?
Yeah.
Everyone's saying equality and be natural and be yourself. Well, he dropped his guts and the girls hated it, and it was hilarious. And he pissed himself laughing like a kid. I thought, oh, yeah, good. He's funny, that bloke. Not just because he farted, but he's got a good sense of humour. Yeah. Mate, I'm sure he's a good guy, and I'm sure our careers, like you said, Andy, were intertwined and were absolutely beneficial for each other. Not me for him, not him for me, for each other. And it was a massive deal, and I'm sure in the future we'll sit down and have a laugh about it all. Because but then I have this endearment towards him, and then I'll hear him say something. He'll give me some shit in the media or say whatever it is, and I'm like, fucking hell, mate, when do you learn? I'm a better fighter, not you. Get it through your fucking head. And that's what it comes down to, Andy. He thinks he's a better fighter than me. I know I'm a better fighter than him, and we'll go to our graves saying that shit. And that's what made our careers, mate, our competitiveness. And I tip my hat to the bloke, mate. It was a great ride.
We could talk boxing and recount every fight and moment. It'd be the longest podcast ever. So I took the liberty of choosing one moment in particular, a moment that we share.
The years of dreaming, the months of sweating, the weeks of training, it is over. Both men inside the ring. One-on-one, the loneliest place on earth. Danny Green and Roy Jones Jr. in front of a near sellout crowd at Sydney's Acer Arena. The biggest fight in Australian boxing history has begun. The IBO Cruiserweight Championship of the world is the reward for the victor here. Roy Jones Jr., the challenger in the red trunks. In the predominantly black trunks, Danny Green. Green holding centre ring and pushing out with the left hand, keeping Jones on his heels. And look at that cobra fast left hand. The 8-time 4-division world champion.
Stick jab to the body from Danny, looking for an opening.
Danny's got to make his mark instantly.
Yep, he needs to let something go there when he gets him in the next corner, I reckon.
Scoring shots, not power shots for Danny Green, but that'll do at this stage. Just a minute into potentially what is a 36-minute night, 12 3-minute rounds. Oh, Roy Jones Jr. is down. He's gone. When you beat a legend, you become a legend, and Danny Green is on the verge of history. Green! Can Jones survive? This is going to finish in one round. The crowd roars. Green fires. Can he stop the living legend?
Back to the body, back to the body. Danny's got to go back down to the body now.
1 minute, 5 seconds remaining in this opening round. Jones is struggling. It's over. Danny Green conquers Australia and the world. Round one. It is over.
Pretty special moment. Pretty special night.
Fuck, man, you nailed it. You said we shared this moment. We did, man.
Yeah.
I was in there and you're there. So it shits me that you still don't commentate, Andy, to be honest, mate.
Thank you, buddy.
You know, it really does. And it's, I think it's a poor choice by taking you away from the sport of boxing, because you literally are like the Joe Rogan of boxing in this country. You bring colour, you bring entertainment, you bring precise calling too, mate. And you bring, you bring intelligence to the calls. It's a sad day that you're not commentating. So hopefully in the future you'll be back on there doing something once Foxtel, come to their senses. But that call there, you and all the fights, you just, and not just mine, all the fights. I really enjoyed. There's some commentators I can't listen to. You spoke about the fights, you spoke about the fighters, but you spoke about what was going on in the fight, not what was fucking happening yesterday or happening tomorrow or the weather. You spoke what was happening in the moment. But yeah, that call there, fuck, you nailed it, mate. And it's made, it could have been different, and it would have never, ever, ever potentially had the same impact and that same wow moment if someone else had called it. And you've every time I listen to it, I just think, fuck, how good's that call? You enhance it, mate. You enhance what I did.
You were the star that night. You still are the star. Is that as good as it gets in the world of professional sport? Winning in such style over a genuine legend of the sport?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's to get Roy down there. I mean, what he did to Jeff Lacey, 14 weeks before that.
Yep.
Was just everyone. No one gave me a single hope. No one, apart from the few people, Angelo, my team, my family. A few people gave me hope. My sparring partners gave me hope. A week out from the fight, they're like, man, you really got to shake at this physically. My power is probably better than his, but Roy gets his power from timing and placement. He's so good that way. His eyes so good. But my natural punching power, bang, is probably superior to Roy's. But there's no point in having that power if I can't land it. So we identified that early, but it doesn't get and to do it in such devastating fashion. But I knew I had a chance to take him out if I hit him, and I landed clean, landed early, and I identified that punch that I got him on the ropes with to drop him. If you replay it and you turn the noise over, it sounds like a whip cracking.
Yes,
you can actually hear it go, and identified early on that the side of his head. On his skull here was very thin and veiny. Thin blue veins were down it when he had his head shaved when I met him in Biloxi in press conference before we fought in the same show. And I said to Angela, I said, man, if I hit that, so if I hit him, when I hit him there, it's going to hurt. Big mitts and big knuckles. I want to drive it and I want to bust his equilibrium up. I want to rattle him. It's going to rattle his cage. We worked on that and then worked on the fact that when he gets in the ropes, he puts his right hand forward and he paws with it, and no one tries to go the body, but no one works on this right hand. They always try and do a jab or a hook or a big overhand right. His eye's too quick and too good, but I wanted to distract him and jab the body, and then he almost always, when he got jabbed in the body on the ropes, he would pull off with a left hook. He'd go left hook, and he'd then leave his hands down a little bit, and then he'd pick his shoulder up to cover.
Yep.
There was a bit of time there that was a pattern with Roy that there was a chance, and I identified that early on, and then bang, went in the body, threw the jab. He left hook. I came over the top and hit him with the right hand, and it just worked. And we threw it 1,000 times in sparring, and I just could not believe that it worked on that night in the first round against Roy Jones Jr. It's like everything come together, mate. It was a once in a lifetime. Would I have defeated Roy Jones if I hadn't landed that shot in the first round? Chances are very, very slim.
Really?
Mate, don't forget what he did to Jeff Lacey 3 months earlier, and then who was known as the pound for pound best at that time. Bernard Hopkins was the pound for pound best at that time, and held that title for 2 or 3 years around that time and after that.
Yep.
The fight after Roy, he went 12 rounds with Roy Jones Jr. and didn't even look like we were hurting Roy. because Bernard was a safe fighter.
Yeah.
I was able to he destroyed Jeff Lacey. Then I fought him and put him away in the first round. But then he went 12 rounds against Bernard Hopkins, the pound for pound best at that time. Would I have beaten Roy if I hadn't landed that first shot? I don't know. Could I have landed another shot that would have rattled his cage? Possibly. Yep. I don't know. So I've never, ever said I'm a better fighter than Roy. Don't go near the bloke. But on my night, what Angela and I were able to achieve, that was what made it so great, was because we were such underdogs.
Was that your best performance if you had to look back at your career and be the judge?
Yeah. Without doubt. Yeah, I had immense self-belief. I remember the referee, Howard Foster, coming to me. You see on the TV, and he taps my groin guard and he chips me. He says, "You good? You good?" And I just smile, just ready to roll. I was smiling. I couldn't wait to fight because I had nothing to lose, Andy. I knew the stadium was sold out. Don't forget, I put my house on the line to make that fight happen. Financially, my house was on the line. So I knew it was sold. I knew it sold very well before I got in the ring. So I knew, as a fighter, as a professional fighter, we're prize fighters. We fight for prize.
Yes.
For a prize. I knew that I was going to get paid. I knew that my house was safe. I knew I was going to get paid well. And I was in there in a packed stadium, and the whole country was watching. It was front page of the newspaper the day of the fight. And I knew that Roy, if I get knocked out against Roy, what have I got to lose? I'm in there with a legend. That's the game I'm in. So I had a very, very a huge amount of confidence because I had nothing to lose as far as I'm concerned, apart from getting knocked the fuck out, which is the fighter, you don't really care. It's no big deal.
We hope you're enjoying Andy Raymond Unfiltered. It's prize week. We've got 10 unfiltered truckers hats to give away. All you need to do on Apple Podcasts is leave a 5-star rating and review, screenshot it, and then email it to mailbox@andyraymondunfiltered.com.au. First 10 emails win a hat. In the third and final episode, the Paul Briggs debacle, the loss to Antonio Tarver, and an emotional realisation. It's Danny Green like you've never heard before. It's Unfiltered. Come back soon, legends. Welcome back to Andy Raymond Unfiltered. Danny Green between the ropes. This is the third and final episode. Previously, we spoke about the Marcus Bayer controversy. We relived a magic night against the legendary Roy Jones Jr. The story continues. From amazing highs, there were also some lows, Danny, in particular the Paul Briggs fight. So much controversy at the time. As you know it, what's the truth?
Well, I guess, unfortunately for me, my role and me being, I was complicit in agreeing to fight Paul Briggs, and that's where I guess my part in that debacle in Australian boxing history is. Paul Briggs jumped in the ring after the Roy Jones victory. He was next to you, commentating with you, and he jumped in. He went up to Justin Manolicus, who was my manager and promoter of Green Machine Boxing, and said, "I want to fight Green. Let's get it on." That night, on the 2nd of December, we fought in 2010, end of July. It was July 26, roughly. So he had in his mind that he wanted to fight me on the 2nd of December 2009. So he was in good nick. He was training. He was a trainer on the Contender Series, etc. And he hadn't fought for 2.5 years. So after that, I wasn't told for another 2 or 3 weeks. Justin, who I call Molly, didn't tell me anything. Just let me enjoy my victory over Roy Jones, and then said, "Briggs, put his hand up and wants to fight. What do you reckon?" And I said, "He hasn't fought for 2.5 years." That's the first thing I said. And then I said, "Look, he's a hell of a fighter. I don't know. I was really unsure."
Yep.
Because he's been inactive. But he's the kind of fighter, he was the kind of fighter that could have had 2.5 years in activity, come back and given anyone a very good scrap if he was on the job, if his mind was in the job.
Agreed.
And, he was a very, very good fighter. And so I said to Justin, let's look at if he's serious about this, he needs a warm-up fight, because people want to see a warm-up. They want to see him back in action. And if people go, yeah, let's do it. This will be a good fight. It makes sense. We want to see Granny fight Briggs. Then we'll put it on, but he's got to have a warm-up fight. This was in January, but all this is documented. This is in black and white as well. We had him tested. Medically. I said, because as a promoter, my company, we made sure we did our due diligence and had Paul Briggs tested with an MRI scan and a full medical, etc., by a doctor that we recommended, so we knew we were getting it done properly.
Yep.
And so that was in February. We fought late July. He maintained that we only gave him 5 weeks' notice for the fight. He maintains that we didn't give him a warm-up or the option to have a warm-up fight. I insisted that he has a warm-up fight. It was my idea. I said, mate, you got to fight first. He said, cool, no worries. Then they were going to put together a fight, and he contacted Justin and said, I can't get up for a warm-up fight. I can only get up for the big ones. You know, being this fighter, I can only do the big one. I can only do the main event. And so, unfortunately, I agreed. And I gave him too much credit as a person that he was going to be in top condition and not come in the condition that he was in. But I had no idea, because when I saw him, he was physically at the fight after the Roy Jones fight. He looked like he was in good nick, etc. And he was claiming he wants to fight. So he knew he wanted to fight me 7 months prior to the fight. So me being a fighter, I know what condition I'm in. I'm a professional, and I know if I want to fight someone, I want to be in the best shape I can be in and give myself every opportunity. I thought that's what Paul Briggs was going to do coming into the fight. Until the night of the weigh-in and the night of the fight, I had absolutely no idea that Paul Briggs was doing anything other than coming to tear my head off. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Now, a lot of people have put the blame on me, and I put my hand up and said I was complicit in part of the fight. I was 50% of the equation. 50%. I fought the guy. I agreed to fight him. But that's it. That's where the buck stops with me, man. Never, ever has anyone said, well, is anyone going to ask his team, who knew intimately what he was going through and what condition he was in, physically, mentally, and emotionally? They all knew. But I was never rung up, and people have thrown a lot of mud and said, you know, this should have gone ahead. Green knew what was going on. Well, if those people cared to call me, if they truly cared about Paul Briggs, they would have called me and said, hey, mate, you can't do this. And I would have listened. I would have listened to people who knew.
Yep.
We signed the contract nearly 3 months, 2.5 months out from the fight. But I can't remember exactly, because it's a decade ago, Andy. But I'm going, it's at least 8 weeks before the fight. But we've spoken about this. We've had Briggs tested in February. Yeah. He knows he's going to fight if he gets through. He knows he's going to fight. So the bloke, I thought he was a professional fighter. He was a real fighter. He'd be training the whole way through, especially being inactive. He's really going to get himself in shape.
Yep.
Wasn't the case. But we didn't know this, but his team knew, and they never told us, and they never told him, and they never had the finger pointed at them in their role in the debacle. So then gets close to the fight. It was 8 weeks out. We were going to announce the fight on Foxtel. I think it was a Danny Gill show out west. And so he was there. I was there. He didn't get into the ring. He forgot to get in the ring, or he was talking to someone and missed the cue and didn't get in the ring with me to announce the fight. So Foxtel didn't announce it. They're like, he's fucked it up. It was a balls up. We were both staying at the Star. We're both, by pure chance, we're on the same level, and we both got out of the lift at the same fucking time. Walked down, and we're walking together, and he was down one end, I was down the other, and I said, all the best, mate, good luck. And he shook my hand. He said, I'm coming for you. You know that. I said, I expect nothing less. Good luck, mate. And we fucking parted ways. Last time I saw it, the New South Wales Commission denied the fight about 5 weeks out, and we had to scramble and try and get the fight in Western Australia, because the fight was selling very, very well, because people thought that was going to be a barn burner. They thought me and Briggsy were going to punch shades over each other.
Yep.
And so they moved the flat. They didn't give him a license, because they said he's been inactive, and they've heard rumours that he wasn't well. But we provided medical proof. He had the MRI, and it was 100% all clear, and a medical 100% all clear. So they're only going off hearsay, and in fact, I can't say that they made the right decision, because what happened, it had nothing to do with them making the decision. Paul Briggs was actually hit with a punch, and it's impossible for me to say that without people going, "Are you fucking dreaming?" But we had a team of a chiropractor and a team of experts, tech experts, Channel 7 the next day, because I was losing my mind, going, there's no way this can happen. I said, because my knuckle, after the fight, my left knuckle was swollen from the shot. And it hit him right between the eyes as he's fallen onto me. He's come forward, I've gone bang. He threw one left hook, I rolled under it because I knew he was going to come hard early. And then he's come forward, I've gone bang, hit him the jab's hit him in the head, and it's gone so quick, and because he was coming forward, almost falling onto it, it's ricocheted off his head. It's snapped his neck kind of in a really awkward position, and we slowed it down to so many per frames per second. It was so slow. You could see it, and the chiro goes, that is a classic brainstem injury. I'm not surprised he was concussed. When he was on all fours, he was looking at Angela Hyder by chance, and H said, mate, he was fucked. His eyes were rolling around his head. Paul Briggs was actually hit with the shot. So I was so angry because you're so emotional and your adrenaline's pumping. I could have got hit. You saw what I took in there, mate, and I didn't react. When I was getting battered, I didn't react. So you could have hit me with a fucking bar stool and I would have eaten it up and smiled at you.
Yeah.
So when that happens, you don't realise you didn't feel a thing. I'm like, fuck, he's just rolled over. I was so angry, called him a dog after the fight, blah, blah, blah. I said he's a canine and said, because I was disgusted with what we took on. Because the night before that, we were supposed to weigh in at 84 kilo, he weighs in at 87. Billy Hussein rang Justin when I was in my garage playing ping pong, losing weight in my sweatsuit, as I do, to make the weight because I'm a pro. And he said, are you losing the weight, Molly? And then he goes, Greeny's losing the weight now. He's in his sweatsuit losing weight playing pong. Yeah, of course we are. Billy goes, cool, no worries. From all reports, Briggs hopped out of the sauna after 10 minutes and goes, I can't be fucked. I'm just going to weigh in. No problem. I didn't know that. 3 or 4 weeks out, Angelo's getting phone calls from Briggs' team saying, Briggs, he's just knocked another guy out. You better fucking watch out. Because I won't name who it was, but H spoke to someone in Briggs' team and they were going very close to the team saying, Briggs is looking really fucking good. Now, we had no idea what was going on. All we knew was we're getting information. I'm 6 weeks away from my family in Sydney training for a fight. If I thought it was going to be an easy fight, I would have just trained at home and just gone, yeah, cool, no problem, and eaten fucking hamburgers and not run around the block and just gone, yeah, no worries. And so when we got to the fight, got to the weigh, and he weighed in overweight, and I was like, oh, and he looked out of shape, and he looked ordinary. He's like, I was just frustrated beyond words, but I had to put that out of the mind because we didn't know what they were doing, whether they were playing more mind games, which they playing the whole way up. After the fight, we find out he's walked to the wrong car after training. He got bowled over by a fucking amateur in sparring, and he was performing very poorly. There was strong reports that he was taking a lot of drugs during the preparation. That was speculation that there was a lot of drugs involved. And then the fight happened, and you saw what happened in the fight. And I had I'm still. It really, really affects me because it left a stain on my reputation. All I knew was that I was going into a fight with a guy that was a warrior, that was a shell of himself now, but had masqueraded as a fighter from December through to end of July, and then lied through the inquiry. They had an inquiry. I had a fucking 4-hour interview with the private investigators that were running the inquiry. That was a former police commissioner here in WA. He cleared us after. He said, I'm sorry you've got to go through this, boys. We've got all the information we need from you. You've been more than helpful and dead straight. Everything's above board. You got nothing to answer. And then they kept going with Briggs' interview, and he lied the whole way through it. Said we only gave him 5 weeks. That's a complete lie. He said they wouldn't allow me to have a warm-up fight. That's a complete lie. Briggs now has, and by his own admission, has been very badly affected by drugs, and by his own admission, he's mentally, he's said he's been in some really dark places. But I think that comes from when you behave that way and you treat people that way, then something's got to give.
Danny, the saddest part for me is the tone in your voice all these years later, that it still hurts and it still haunts you.
Well, what haunts me is the fact that I didn't get to fight Paul Briggs in our prime and knock him out, because people in the boxing industry know. Angela Hyder was there. Billy Hussein actually caught Paul Briggs' head when it was going through the ropes when I knocked him out. We sparred before the Costa Zoo fight and Jesse James Layer fight in 2003. We were both in the card. He flew up from Melbourne. I was in Sydney. Came to the Merrickville gym. We sparred. We did 6 rounds. It was hard going. Briggs is a tough guy. I was super-middleweight. He was light heavy. It was hard going. There was a big crowd there because it was fucking people should have charged.
There was.
And people saw what happened. I was chipping away though. First 2 or 3 rounds tough. Then I started hurting him. Round 4, round 5, I started hurting him. Round 6, round 7, I'm hurting him. He's wearing down. I'm on him. We've got 16-ounce gloves and he's got a head guard on. Round 8, in the corner, I slip one of his jabs and come through the little 45 right in the button. His legs went below him. He was gone. He was knocked out. Not hurt, not wobbled, not concussed. Fucking knocked out.
Wow.
Jeff being Jeff, very smart. How do I get this publicised? I don't want to tell people. How do I let people know that Greeny just knocked Briggsy out? Get someone to fucking get a sleeper to call the radio station. Just saw this happen. Anonymous call. The radio called me. I talk about it respectfully because that's who I am. But all these years later, I should have fucking jumped up and down and going, I knocked the fucking guy out.
Yeah.
I handled Paul Briggs. And so for me, I handled him in 20 rounds of sparring. I knocked him out with 16-ounce gloves on. For me, I wish I'd fought the guy as a super-middleweight and he could be heavyweight because I knew I had his number. I handled Paul Briggs. Tough guy, good fighter. Wasn't easy, but I handled it. If Briggsy wants to dispute that, no problem. You can dispute that and you can lie through your fucking teeth again, but there's too many people who saw what happened. I knocked him out. And so I felt very comfortable fighting, but I knew that it was going to be a tough fight. And when you got 10 ounces on, it could be a different story, but I've already knocked him with fucking with 16s, but it made sense. And the fact that it sold very well on pay-per-view, pubs and clubs sold really well, and the homes sold really well, and the Perth Stadium sold out in a heartbeat when we moved it to Perth 2 weeks before the fight, proves that people wanted to see that fight. And that's what you do as a fighter. You're a prize fighter. You put the fights on that people want to see, and it was proven people wanted to see that fight. They wanted to see me and Paul Briggs fight. But I had 50% part in that fight by agreeing to do it. Green Machine Boxing promoted it, but that means nothing. We had a due diligence done with Paul Briggs. His team intimately knew exactly what condition he was in physically and mentally. People around him knew exactly what was going on, but they were just happy to go with the ride, mate. They were happy to get paid. They were happy to be part of the fucking circus. And then, unfortunately, my name was dragged into the mud with the whole furor. But I sleep at night knowing that I had no role to play. There was nothing untoward. Another fact is that there was an investigation into the betting of the fight. So before the fight, there was some people that were around his people, there's some crew that were around Briggsy. I'm not going to mention names, but it's not fucking a secret. They loaded up on a fucking first round knockout. Late on that evening before the fight started, they all loaded up on a first round knockout. I can't remember where the betting was suspended on. On my father's ashes, I've never bet on a fight on myself in my life. I've bet on 2 fights in my entire life. One was Mike Tyson when he fought Lennox Lewis, and I put $100 on to win. And I lost my money because he didn't knock him out. I put in $100 on the nose to win by points. And the other fight, I won about $2.5 on Mundine when he fought Rabchenko. Because I thought, no, Mundine's going to beat this bloke. So I fucking won on Mundine and Rabchenko. The only 2 fights I've ever put money on in my entire life. But I know that after the fight, there was a big investigation because all these guys around their camp loaded up on the first round on Briggsy to get knocked out in the first round because they fucking knew intimately what condition he was in. Turns out now the bloke had trouble walking to the fucking car. But we didn't know that. We were told he's knocking guys out. He looks amazing. He's fucking training the house. This is going to be a war. Now, as a fighter, I went away from my family for 6 weeks, got brain damage fucking preparing for the fight, and then sacrificed all that time away from my kids. I never get that 6 weeks back. And then what happens in the fight? So as you can tell, mate, it upsets me greatly. But what upsets me is that Paul Briggs still has never put his hand up and gone, yeah, I fucked up. I did the wrong thing. I shouldn't have taken the fight. I should have been straight, but I need the money. That's okay, mate. You need the money. I'd have given you the fucking money. No problem. Pay me back. Don't care how long it takes. We're fighters. I'll do that. You're a fucking warrior. But now I've lost all respect for Paul Briggs, and he still lies to this day about it. He still goes on. But they're the facts, Andy. Anything else is a myth. Anything else is fabricated, and this is in black and white. So it's a sad chapter in boxing in my life. And it's something that I always get asked about, and it takes a long time to answer because I can't just go, yeah. And then when people go, oh, you actually hit him? Yeah, I fucking hit the guy. The guy, and Paul Briggs didn't actually lie down. He didn't take a dive. He was actually hit with the punch. It's called a brainstem injury, mate. So in fairness to Briggs, he didn't actually take a dive. He was just in terrible fucking condition, and he shouldn't have been there. But his team, the blame has to lie with his team as well. Blame doesn't lie with me, man. The blame lies with his fucking team who never, ever, ever cared for him.
The Antonio Tarver and Christoph Wlodarczyk fights were emotional nights. They were really tough nights, mate. You were beaten and you were hurt those nights. By this stage in your life, you're a father. You're a husband, you're a son. How difficult was that for the Green family? Because it is a very close family to sit there and watch you getting hurt on a big stage. How tough was that?
Yeah, the Tarver fight was tough, mate. It was tough. You know, he's a fucking shrewd guy, very, very shrewd guy in his dealings, in the negotiations, mate. He's fucking smart. I learned from that bloke.
Wow.
He taught me a few lessons. In negotiating, and you know, yeah, Antonio, he's an interesting cat, and I was worried about. Once again, I had to pay a lot of money to get Antonio Tarver, and I paid the money. My promoter paid the money to get him out here, and it cost a lot to get him out here.
Yeah.
And it turns out, you live and learn. It turns out that he wasn't the seller that we thought he was going to be. He wasn't the commodity that we anticipated he was going to be in Australia, and it didn't really sell well. So my house was, again, on the line. A lot of money at stake. And so I was really, really worried about promoting the fight and making sure that there was enough people in the venue to cover costs.
Yeah.
So that really was playing my mind. And that's one aspect of my career that could have been different as far as being the promoter, my company promoted. And I always I'm a fucking control freak, mate. So I got really involved, and I learned not to. You know, I should not been involved as much as I should as I was. And so by the time the bell went, you know, my mind I was physically okay. That's why I was able to keep going.
Mentally
but
burnt.
you know, I was mentally burnt out and mentally not focused on beating Antonio Tarver. I was focused on beating, but I was also focused on making sure that we got people in the venue and people were buying on TV to save myself from losing a shitload of money. And that's what you do as a pro. You don't lose money as a fighter. And so yeah, I was basically just eating punches and walking onto them. And it was a really, really tough night, mate. It was an experience that I don't really reflect on much and don't really go back on much, because it was a forgettable night for me. And then, you know, my brother ended up, you know, throwing the towel in after round 9, and I was dirty. I said before my fight, if anyone throws the fucking towel, you better run, because I know I'm coming for you.
But you understood.
And I was dirty for a couple of hours, but he's my brother. He loves me, and I get it. I totally get it. I'd done the same thing if it was him. So he made the right choice, because I was going to get knocked out.
Yes.
And that was it. And so then, yeah, my family were, the old man was like, mate, you've been doing this for a long time. That was not a good performance. And I was like, Dad, I took a lot of time to reflect and took a time to take a break. I said, Dad, it's not the best I got, mate. I was all over the place mentally. I was a dickhead. I had my head up my ass that fight. I was first to say I had my head up my ass. And then the Wlodarczyk fight, I was like, you know what? I know I'm better than that. Yeah. So I chose a fucking bigger and badder bloke than Tarver and went after Wlodarczyk and brought him out here.
Yep.
And in the very next fight, and I knew what I showed against Tarver wasn't the best that I had.
Yeah, agreed.
I knew I had more in the tank, and then I proved it. But unfortunately, his left hook, you know, put paid to a bit of a fairy tale victory. But I was dominating the bloke, nearly put him away in round 5, and was just dominating. But he's a tough guy, and he was patient, and he hurt me bad with a broken nose. Broke my nose badly in round 9, and then round 11, you know, halfway through the round, he threw a beautiful left hook, and that's boxing. That's the game, and that was his class, his patience. He knew he'd hurt me. He knew he'd slow me down. And but they were very, very surprised, very shocked about they were literally losing their world title in an opponent's backyard against this pissant small little cruiserweight, blown up like heavyweight, really.
Yeah.
And they were shocked, and it was it was like they won the lottery when they landed their left hook. But it was a beautiful shot, and there was nothing lucky about it. He threw a beautiful shot and turned the lights out, and but I was very, very proud to get off the ground and beat the count. I beat the count. Yeah. Spilling blood everywhere and all over the referee, and I fell face first in the referee, but I beat the count. That's something I'm very proud of, mate. Beating the count, but I couldn't go on. The ref made the decision.
I always used to do, because I thought it was the right thing to do, when a mate was in a fight, in particular when they lost, I would make the effort to go into a losing dressing room to check the welfare and to reaffirm my support. It was after Antonio Tarver. I came in, really quick chat with you, gave you a pat on the back and a hug. You messaged me the next day with a really emotional, sincere and wonderful message. Just saying thanks. And it actually upset me when I got to thinking, because at the time a guy needs more support, a losing dressing room is a very, very lonely place. It seems the majority in this sport only want to associate with the winner. There's a lot of insincerity, a lot of backslapping in the sport of boxing, and not a lot happens in a loser's dressing room.
It's a very good word, mate. Insincerity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to think my change rooms, win, lose, or draw, the core group were always there. But yeah, when you win, there's a lot more in the room. But when you lose, it's pretty quiet. So yeah, I remember that, Andy. And although I was pretty concussed, I do remember it, and remember the people that come into my room. And I like to think that I made a point of going out of my way to remember that and acknowledge that, because it's respect. You showed me respect, and that's what people do, mate. You know, good people go and console people who are, had a loss or whatever it may be. And that's I remember that. I'm glad you remember that too. That's fucking cool. And the fact that you had that, because people don't realise you're very intimate. You have a very intimate knowledge of what a fighter goes through. Yep. You're there at the weigh-in, you're there at the fucking press conference, you're there in the lead up, you're there in the interviews before the fight. You're the commentator like yourself is a big part of what the fighters go through, and then you watch it and you hear it.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realise when they're watching TV is the noise of a fight and the smashing of heads and the smashing of bodies. And when the heads clash, the headbutts and the elbows, and you hear it, you know it, you can feel it, so you know what we go through. So yeah, when that happens, mate, it means a lot to a fighter when you come in and pay your respects.
The more I delve into professional athletes and how they function, it seems it's really important to be selective with your circle of trust. You elite level guys keep that circle of trust very small, a select group of long-time mates and family. How important is it?
Yeah, it's very, very important. And it's, I guess, before the fight, you're so revved up, you're so hyped up, but you just want to be surrounded by people that make you feel comfortable. Okay. So I had my mates, I had my brother in my corner. My brother was never my trainer, but he's in my corner because he's my brother. I love the bloke, and he makes me feel comfortable. He's one of the funniest people I know. Yes. He's with my son. My father's gone now, so he's with my son. He's my best mate, and so to have that person with me, I call him, and because he's shorter than me and he cops it all the time, I call him my Shetland pony. So they put a Shetland pony with a racehorse to calm him down. He's my Shetland pony. To have him there and then have him in the corner with me, and it's like, I know my brother's with me. Although he's not in there with me, I know he's there. And he doesn't like watching me get hit. He hates it as well. And, my father would always come in the change rooms and just say good day, and he'd be nervous. He'd be biting his nails and fucking, gritting his teeth and chewing gum and, before. And I used to really enjoy saying to my old man, I'd give him a hug before he goes. He goes, right, he'd go, right, I'm going to go now. Because he wouldn't hang around much. He'd just let me do my thing. Old man, he's old school. Come in, I'd give him a hug and I'd say, Dad, I've got this, mate. I've got this. It's all good, mate. Go and relax, mate. So it made me feel so powerful, calming down my dad, who was the guy that was always calming me down. A blow-in's just someone who wants to come in and pat you back and say good day, but they don't give a flying fuck about you or who you are. If you lose, you don't see the blow-in. So I only want the people in there that are there, win, lose or draw.
When you finally hung up the gloves, was it an easy transition? A lot of boxers, a lot of athletes miss the adrenaline rush. How did you transition?
I think when I fought Cameron and beat Shane Cameron, I remember you after the fight, you said, you intimated this may be the last we've seen of him. I think the last thing I said was, I want to be an Aussie and get in the cans of the boys.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I said. I said, thanks very much, catch you later. And I wasn't sure whether I was going to fight again. So I had a 2.5 year break before I fought again. But there was always that itch scratching me about beating China.
Yep.
And financially, with prize fighters, guys go, you just did it for the money. Yeah, no shit. Or do you go to work 9 to 5 because you love your boss? No, you do it because that's what you do. That's your job. That's how you pay your bills.
Yep.
It's the same thing I do.
Yep.
So for me, it made sense to capitalise, and also capitalise on the brain damage that I know I've accrued over the years.
Yeah.
Well, I might as well make it pay. And more than anything, that's why I just need to get that victory. And so I came back after that. So I transitioned during the Cameron fight, and when I came back and fought Belanti, I'd had that 2.5 years where I set my business up, set my future up with what I'm going to do to pay my bills moving forward with the gymnasium. So I set up Grand Zone Fitness. So I've never officially retired, but I'm never fighting again.
Yeah.
So what happened, and then after that, I was already transitioned before I'd had my last fight. So that made it easier. So once again, my old man gave me some great advice. He said, move into something and transition well before you finish boxing if you can, because it'll make it easier after.
Good advice.
He didn't actually say that as such, but I know that's what my old man was meaning.
Yep.
I know that's what he meant. And so, yeah, it was a smoother transition that I had if I had not done it prior to that, previously for a couple of years. But I always missed that adrenaline. Like, how do you bottle that feeling of walking out to the stadium? How do you bottle that, Andy?
You can't.
And I'll never, ever, you can't replicate it.
Nah.
There's no drug, there's no activity, there's no sport for me that unless I took off on a 50-foot wave and got barreled on a 50-foot wave.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that possibly give me that same feeling.
Yep.
So I'll always miss it, and I'll always be competitive, and I'll always think, yeah, maybe one more. I think most fighters go through that until they fucking die.
Are you concerned for your own health in the future, Danny? Because you just mentioned it in that last answer. The brain damage that some boxers, do suffer and sadly suffer.
To say I'm not concerned would be a lie.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, I've been getting punched in the face since I was 12 years old. I started karate and then kickboxing.
Yep.
And then boxing. So from a young age, I've been taking punishment physically in my body, but also more so in the brain. And, you grow up around, I did, 12, 13, I grew up around violence, around fighting, around hard men, around dangerous men, around fighting, around all that stuff, combat sport, contact sport, getting knocked out, knocking people out, hurting people, getting hurt. So violence as such I'm just desensitized to it.
Yep.
I don't really think much of it. It doesn't register on my radar, violence. I hate seeing people knocked out in public though.
Yeah.
I hate seeing that. When I see blokes getting knocked out on TV, I don't like seeing that.
No.
I hate seeing it. I really don't like it. So that type of violence I hate seeing. But my own experience is for, over 30 years.
Yeah.
Has been violence as such. So the brain damage, yeah, it does. I do worry a lot, and I think, what am I going to be like in 10 years' time when I'm nearly 58?
Yeah.
Am I still going to be with it? I don't know that, Andy. I can't answer that question, but I do know one thing that is a fact. I will suffer. I don't think my end's going to be that pretty, but I'm realistic, and that's the dice that I rolled. And would I do it again? I say now, yes. But I'd readdress that question if I had the ability when I was 100.
Yeah.
If I make, but I'm not making 100, mate. I don't reckon I'll be lucky to make 65. But that's the game, mate. That's the sport, and that's the life that I've chose to lead. And I can't turn the clock back. I wish I could if the demise is going to be fucking very ordinary. So I just got to hope that it's not too early and too critical, but that's reality, mate. If people don't want to face it, then that's their choice, that's their prerogative. It's not a nice thing to think about, but I do know that I'm going to suffer the consequences of over 30 years of combat.
That's sad. I don't know if you call it a sad reality or what. I've got tears in my eyes just hearing that. Does it scare you? Are you scared of the future?
Doesn't so much scare me. It's more it's more. I don't know, man. I don't know, Andy. I really don't know, mate. I try not to think about it too much. Try just not to think about it, mate. I just try and just make sure that I tell my kids and try and just guide them and give them as many lessons as I can, because I know that I want to always be able to do that.
What are you most proud of as a boxer and as a man?
Plenty of things I'm not proud of, but then my son had a school, a little bit of an assignment at school, and it said one of the questions was, and his teacher sent it to me. He didn't show me, but his teacher sent it to me, forwarded it to me. He said, "I thought you'd like to see this," and it said, "Who was your idol?" and those kind of questions, and of course your son chooses their father, but
yeah.
he chose me. But you know what he said, the words that he used, and in saying that, I've made a lot of mistakes, mate, and you know I could have been a better example many times throughout my life. You know, to my children as well. As fathers, you live and learn, mate. Mm. But when you read that and you know that you've had that impact on your son's life and your daughter's life, you know, my daughter, she's, you know, hopefully they'll look back and hopefully I've given them the right lessons and they've learned from my mistakes. I often say, mate, don't be like me. Don't do what I do. Don't do that. That's not right. That's, you know, you do it, Dad. Not right, mate. You know, so it's hard. But yeah, I think that was the proudest thing is reading that just last week. It was only a week ago I read that. I was like, and he didn't know that the teacher said it. He was like, oh man, this fucking melted my heart. You know, I wanted to go and pick him up from school and just give him a big hug there and there on the spot.
That's brilliant, and it doesn't surprise me that coming from such a close family that what you're most proud of is your family. Danny, a wonderful career. We've had a wonderful working relationship and friendship. The sport of boxing was on its knees prior to your arrival, and with a new generation, you're one of very few who I believe saved it. Your achievements will long be remembered, but more importantly, how you achieved them won't be forgotten. Danny Green, you, sir, are a legend.
Andy, mate, boom back at you. Much appreciated. And you know, I'll always look back with such fondness, and listening to the fights is as exciting and as alluring for me to watch the fights, to listen to them, because you just enhanced what I did. I worked so fucking hard and we trained so hard and we sacrificed so much. And then to have it, because I've been let down with commentary, put on some great shows and not the ones you weren't in, I've been let down. And they've always been the ones that you weren't in, the shows and the fights that you were on, that you commentated. You put the cream on top of the fight. For me to watch back and replay and have my kids listen to it, you probably don't realise how important it is, but people listen, they hear and they register, and they can be influenced, particularly children. So when they hear they hear you talking about me in such high regard and enhancing and putting the cream on top of the hard work and the sacrifice I'm doing, that's pretty fucking special, Andy. So I have a lot to thank you for, mate, for throughout my career, for the calls that you did, which just absolutely enhanced what I did.
It's been a pleasure to be a very small part of the story. We hope you enjoyed Danny Green Between the Ropes on the Legends series. Next week, we speak with rugby league royalty Laurie Daly. It's prize week on Andy Raymond Unfiltered with 10 truckers hats to give away. To win, simply be one of the first 10 people on Apple Podcasts to leave a 5-star rating and review. Screenshot it and email it to mailbox@andyraymondunfiltered.com.au. It's that simple. Come back soon, legends.